know, what was it? One of the friends here just told me today that somebody told them that where they work or where they go, they can't even wear buttons that says, "In God we trust." We know there's companies that do this. We've stopped giving our business. And I know they'll delete this out of the television, but I'm going to say it so you can know. We don't give Home Depot a dime of our money no more because sadly they fired a young man last year in Florida because he wore a button that said, "In God we trust." I called the corporate office to see if that was a lie. And the man said it's true. I disagree with the policy, but it is our policy. Isn't it amazing that you can't stand for God anymore at all, and yet He's the one who has blessed us? So that's why God told Solomon, the first thing, don't forget me, because I'm the one who's blessed you. America today needs to remember God. And don't you ever think that you can do without it. I've said for years, the worst enemies that I'll ever face in life is not people that I know, or it's not the drugs or the alcohol. It's not the abuse of crime in society today. That's not the worst enemies we face. The worst enemy you and I face will be God. For if God ever turns His back on us, we're doomed. Remember, if you don't believe that, read the earlier 2 verses before you get to 14. Well, let me just read it to you. The Lord appeared to Solomon by night. He said to him, "I've heard your prayer. I've chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice." What was Solomon's prayer? To be wise. We need wisdom today in America. We need godly wisdom. We just don't need to have young people educated. We need godly wisdom. Men who are seeking and women who are seeking God. Now listen to this. Listen to what God said to Solomon. When I shut up heaven, what? There is no rain. Isn't that what it says there? What's God meaning here? What's He trying to say to Solomon? I want you to learn something today. You know what He's trying to say? I'm in control. I'm the one, if I don't want it to rain, it won't rain. If I want it to snow, it snows. I'm the one that's in charge of everything, Solomon. That's really what he's saying there. And we need to remember that. It's not us that makes us a great nation. It is God that has been behind us, that's made us a great nation. And every day, I hope that when you get up in the morning, we've been teaching the Bible college classes, and I was teaching Thursday night about even just how to witness more and worship more. I said, do you really get up in the morning? Tell the truth. And as the first thing do, you thank God for a good night's rest? Do you thank God that you can put your feet on the ground? That you had a warm place to sleep, or in this case, a cool place to sleep? You know, I had a woman call me again this week. She said, "Mister, do you have a tent?" Never heard from the lady in my life. Don't even know who she is. I said, "I don't think so." "What would I need with a tent?" She said, "Well, I need one because we're sleeping in the woods down here on Intercoastal Waterway, and I've got a 16-year-old girl going to school, and we need a tent." You thank God that you had a house. Now, I know some of these people, they choose this life. I understand that. But the point is, do you just thank God for the little things? You thank God for having a good marriage, good family, people that are around that love you and that care about you. I deal with people every day that seems like nobody cares. I said to a man this week, I said, "When's the last time you talked to your children?" He said, "It's been 6 years." I said, "Don't you ever think about those kids?" He said, "They want nothing to do with me." I said, "Wouldn't you like to call them?" And I handed him the cell phone. I said, "You call them. I'll pay for the call if it costs." And he put the phone back down between us as we drove, and he said, "They don't want to hear from me." Listen, you're blessed if you've got a family that cares about you. Listen, folks. He said, "If I shut the windows of heaven up, there is no rain. If I cause the locusts to devour the land," in other words, command them, I even control the nature. I control the pestilence. Or send pestilence among my people. In other words, that's disease. Folks, listen. That's why he said, "If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves, shall pray." Here's what he's trying to say to Solomon. Put me number one. If America is ever going to be the nation that God intended it to be, it has to start looking toward God. It has to repent for their sins. And you say, well, America sinned? Oh, yes. We've all sinned. Everybody makes mistakes. And we need to humble ourselves. I like that last word. What's it mean to be humble? Well, it doesn't seem like that's a word that's used very often in schools today and in the business world, but we need to be humble. Humbleness is not thinking too much of yourself. One of my favorite verses in the Bible goes like this: do not think of yourselves more highly than you should, but always remember those who are less fortunate. You see, because when you're not humble, you're arrogant. Your pride comes before you. And what does the Bible say happen with pride? Pride goeth before the what? Isn't that amazing? God knew what He was talking about. Well, Lord, shouldn't we be proud of our events and the things we've done? Yes, but don't forget who caused it. If you've got an intelligent education today, you may have studied hard, but listen, it was God who gave you that mind. If you don't believe that, just walk around and see children, sadly, who are Down syndrome or whatever disease they may have. Why weren't you born that way? If you walked in here on two legs, you're blessed. Why is it you're not crippled or hurt or broken? You see, that's what God was trying to say to Solomon, and that's what I want you to get as times run out today. Everything that you are is because there's a God, and if you humble yourself before Him, if you obey Him, and if you love Him, He will keep blessing you. I want you to do me a favor because we don't have time today. I want every one of you to go home and read Deuteronomy 28. We've preached it many times. Joel preaches usually several series, once a year on it. But I want you to read Deuteronomy 28. Just read the whole. Take you about 20 minutes to read it. 15 if you're, 20 if you're like me, 15 if you're like the rest of you. You know what God promised Israel? He said, I'll bless your coming, I'll bless your going, I'll bless your children, I'll bless your grandkids, I'll bless everyone around you if you do one thing: put me first. Now, the sad part about America today is the things that I see every day. I see a nation still not being humble. I see a nation still that it seems to be out of control, from everything from the crimes to how we treat people. Every Saturday we've been out visiting. And I appreciate, we had a pretty good sized little group, but not as many as we'd like. And I appreciate these men and women and kids even that go out and door knock every Saturday. Because you know what that says to me? I care. I want to challenge you to be here every night this week and pray and fast maybe even and ask God to give us a great revival. We forget everybody that accepts the Lord is one that the devil won't get. We need to remember that. Everybody has a soul. Everybody. And if that soul doesn't know God, what will happen to that person when they die? Well, I want to tell you what the Bible says, not what I say. Jesus said this, John 3:3. You can go home and read this again today. Jesus told a man at night, He said, you must be born again. Or what? Or you cannot, what? The kingdom of heaven. You know, Jesus said that. And Nicodemus was a very brilliant man in his day. Don't forget that. He was not a dumb man. He was not an uneducated man. He was a Pharisee, which meant he was the top of their line. He was the elite of the Jewish nation. He was elite financially. He was elite educationally. He was on top. And yet when he met Jesus, he saw something he did not have. He had the money, he had the prestige, he had everything that even America teaches their young. This will make you happy. I was reading a book yesterday to the folks after we door knocked. I've got a book in there on how to be a soul winner. And it's written by a young man that I never met, but I've read a lot about him. And at one time, he ran a multi-million-dollar company. One time, he had the largest prostitution ring in the United States. He owned most of the brothels in Las Vegas. He said, I had Rolls Royces, I had limousines, I had my fourth wife. He liked women. And, he said, I had the mansions. I had everything. And he said, I'd even won national champions in racquetball. He was a very good athlete. And he said, I went to the country club one day and I saw this Jewish guy in there getting dressed. I knew he was a medical doctor. He was a surgeon. And he said, I said to him, why aren't you going to go do your Yom Kippur? He said, the guy said to me, I don't have to do that no more because Yom Kippur is about where Jews go once a year and they pray for their sins to be rolled ahead. He said, I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior, and he said, my sins are forgiven. And he said, I began to laugh at him. I began to mock him. And then I skipped on down in a few more parts of the chapter, and here's what he said. He said, I want everybody to know that anyone that ever witnessed to me, even though I insulted them, even though I laughed at them, even though I antagonized them, they may have felt they walked out as failures, but they felt dead wrong. I want you to listen. Listen. He said, because every time they would leave, I still remembered their face and their name, and I knew that what they had I really wanted. But I did not believe that God could help me. But God did help him. God did reach him. And now this young man no longer runs a multi-million-dollar business of prostitution. This young man goes to one of our churches in Las Vegas and is studying and working as a minister out there. What can God do for us? If my people, I'm going back to that verse again. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, I will hear them and raise them up. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to close. I don't know if you feel like you're being blessed. If you're not, why don't you ask yourself why? Maybe the problem is not everybody else. Maybe it's the one you're looking at in the mirror. I'm being honest. You know, Cheryl and I have been so blessed. Our families have been so blessed. Every time we turn around, God just does something more wonderful in our life. And that doesn't mean you don't have heartaches. That don't mean you don't have downtime. But we don't turn our back on God. We stay with the Lord. And we've been poor. And we've had an abundance. And I don't know how this thing's going to turn out with the rest of America, but I promise you, as God is my witness, with His help, we're going to stick with the Lord. Because I've got a sense enough to know one thing, and I want you to listen. If you get nothing out of this sermon, get this last point. I'm going to die. I'm going to be just like those people in 9/11. One day, my heart will stop. One day, there'll be a disease that'll take my body. One day there'll be something that's going to overtake me. It may just be age. But I have the hope and the promise that even when that happens, my God will take care of my soul.